Thursday night insight program. And at this time, I'd like to introduce you to our MC, our host, and that would be Sister Michelle. So, Sister Michelle, welcome, greetings, how are you?
I'm great, Brother Eric. Thank you so much. And I'm delighted to be here again with all of my brothers and sisters here with Global Harmony House virtual. This is our ongoing Thursday insightful conversations. And if you've been here before, welcome back. And if you're new to us tonight, I hope you will enjoy it. I know you will, and you'll come back again and again. It's funny, Brother Eric, I was just, noticing, I love the seasons. I love New York, and I love the seasons, and I noticed so much green, and whereas before it was cold and the land was dark and barren, and now it's just such a time for rebirth and renewal. When you look at the calendar of May, it is about renewal and growth, and our theme for this month, in line of that, is spiritual power to flourish in life. So it is a time of renewal for us, a time where we can refresh ourselves and take stock. And tonight, our subject is recharging and strengthening our inner life. For truly what's important is our inner life. Yes, we can enjoy the beauty outside, but it's really what's inside that counts. And you know that if you're here and you study with us on Thursdays, you'll know it's very important to have a very strong and ongoing inner dialogue, inner life, if you will. So tonight's subject is when we're bombarded with opinions and worries and fears, and it slams us without warning. And that's truly the way that it is right now. The world throws things through TV and media and social media and the pandemic. So many different vectors are coming our way, and it's slamming us over and over again. How do we create a distance, a healthy distance, from those types of pressure, where we can feel secure and strong without worrying as much about these outer demands? So that's what tonight we're going to explore. And to that end, we have a wonderful presenter. And if you've joined us, you'll know her. She's been with us before. It's Sister Devki from the sunny and warm Caribbean. And once you get to know her, you too will be warmed like you will be by the sun. She is a warm and compelling personality, and it's just such a delight to have her. Just to give you a little background on Sister Devki, she has been with the Brahma Kumaris over 35 years. Originally, she was from Guyana, and she coordinated service at the center there for 12 years. But for the past 14 years, she's been based in St. Martin, Caribbean. Wow. And she's instrumental for service and coordinates activities in St. Martin, and Saba, St. Eustatius, Anguilla, and St. Croix. She travels internationally, visiting centers in many, many countries, and she shares her spiritual insights and wisdom to the betterment of us, in the empowerment of us. I know you're going to enjoy it, and welcome. It's such a pleasure to see you up front, even though it's virtually. I can feel your energy and vibration. We did have a little discussion yesterday, so I feel I do know you, and I'm so honored to unveil you, if you will, to our listening and visual and watching audience. So welcome, Sister Devki. How do you do?
Thank you, Michelle, for that warm and welcoming introduction, and hello to everyone, and greetings from the warm and sunny part of the world. I can hear the excitement building up in Michelle's voice as she described the change that is taking place in the climate. And yet we know that there are other changes that are taking place, which many of us doesn't seem to have much control over these days. And so tonight we want to talk about those changes that seems to be out of our control, but yet we have to stay in control. How do we do that? And I think we have had quite a bit of practice in the last year, developing the art of staying safe, staying healthy, staying protected, and hopefully we have also mastered the art of staying indoor, which adds to another layer of protection. That protection that we've been focusing on is more on the physical level of staying physically healthy and protected. Hygiene, social distancing, wearing protective gear. It's like a level of cleaning, isn't it? Hygiene, a level of cleaning, and social distancing. It's a kind of detachment, isn't it? And wearing our protective gear. Maybe we are focused on wearing our mask and all that which protects the body. What about wearing an aura of peace, an aura of silence, an aura of love? Now there's a need to master another art. That physical protection we've given a lot of focus on. Now we need to master another art, a more refined art of staying protected from outside influences from people and their opinion, their attitudes, their behavior, how to prevent the self from being disturbed by situations, many of which we have no control. And yes, there's yet another art, the final art of how to deal with our own thoughts, feelings, emotions, our own memories, our own deep rooted habits, which we ourselves created repeatedly. So, whilst the lockdown created a space and time to step inside and stay safe, some of us took our safety in our own hands, whilst others choose otherwise. Yet we all need to create a sacred space in our mind to stay protected from our own inner upheavals, our own turmoil. As souls, we are all individual beings of light, non-physical energies. And we came here naked, without this body, alone, and with empty hands. We came from a world far beyond the sun, moon, the stars. A world with no drama stage, no sound, and no movement. The soul world, the home of all souls. It is a world of stillness, silence, peace, liberation, and most of all, purity. The true essence of the soul is purity. The language of the soul is silence. The true power of the soul is peace. And the natural nature of the soul is freedom. So the big question to ask the self right now, are we free, peaceful, pure, and why not? We all know we have to return how we came, in that pristine state. Then what's the method to use to get there? Introspection is the art of staying protected from within. When there's an argument brewing, what do? You put a bead in your mouth, you use silence, you withdraw if you can, walk away if necessary, you create a physical distance. In spiritual language, they call it detachment. Detachment is a very healthy habit. It's a safety mechanism to protect our own selves from being influenced. Today we talked about social distancing. Did you notice our love for each other? Did it change? Did it lessen with distance? In fact, it became so much more deeper and pure. So detachment is in fact an expression of deep and pure love. When you try helping someone and you notice that that person is becoming dependent, what do? You create a space, not just to protect yourself alone, but also to safeguard the dignity of the other person, not wanting them to become a victim, not wanting them to be helpless. When a mother wants to teach the child to walk, she must let go of her hand. And yet she stays behind that child lest she falls. So it's an application of being loving and yet detached. So space is very healthy. It allows growth, encourage independence. In the last few months, not wanting to risk or endanger the lives of loved ones, we stayed away, didn't we? And in doing so, we proved that we truly love them. When your child is hurt, as a mother, seeing the child's condition, child is playing outside, then at some point the child runs in the house crying, there's bruise on the knee, whilst playing, someone pushed him, and he's confused, not understanding why someone would want to hurt him. He's crying, he's in pain. Seeing your child crying, if you get emotional and feel like crying too, become disturbed, can you help your child? So that mother has to detach herself from her own pain, own fear, own anger, own worry. And she puts a smile on the face, a smile of confidence. She's in control. She has to practice detachment in order to serve effectively. Like a tortoise, although it has a hard protective skin, yet when it senses danger, it withdraws. It moves to a position of safety. So I, the soul, have to learn to withdraw first from the organs of the body, become a seed, a soul, a point of light, my original form, detached, and then observe the drama of life. Disengage from negative, hurtful situations, and instead remain calm and allow contentment to emerge. Introspection is a Latin word that means to look inside. Spirituality teaches us to always look inside and to meet with myself. Myself, what self? The real self inside, the inner you, the real actor inside. Role is outside. Self, the actor, is inside. And when I meet myself a few times during the day, that is not rejecting or avoiding the reality of life. It's not isolation either. I choose to be quiet, to turn inwards, and not because of fear or dislike, but because I know the power of silence. And I use that power of silence to boost my self-confidence. Introspection helps us to refocus again and again. When we approach a traffic light or traffic lights, we get into the right lane. We stop, we pause. It brings us back to the present. It reminds us what to do next. Turn right or left. The traffic light gives us a sense of direction. So to pause, to stop periodically within the course of the day is to bring us back to the presence and give us a sense of direction, where to turn or go next. So introspection provides an opportunity to reflect and understand my own pattern of behavior. In that silence, that natural state of the soul, I can listen clearly. listen to the voice of my conscience, the voice of my intuition. Sometimes it is speaking to me, but I can't hear it at all because of the inner or outer noises. I'm sure many of you have read the Desperata. It says, go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. It says, avoid loud and aggressive people, their vexation to the spirit. So every time we feel bombarded or overwhelmed, what do? You're sitting at your computer desk and you feel this workload is getting on top of you. You choose to take a coffee break, don't you? Some of us not just take coffee break, we take a power nap sometimes if it is required to recharge our energy. And in some places and culture, at the end of a full, tough week at work, like in St. Martin, they have what we call happy hour, where colleagues get together in a more friendly, relaxed atmosphere and exchange, have a conversation. So, happy hour is necessary. End of the year, we take vacation. So, changes is necessary. And so, stepping in and then stepping out back after refreshing yourself. There's a methodology called SOS, not the one save our soul, but SOS means stand back, observe, and steer. Whenever you're becoming uncomfortable, confused, disturbed, you find yourself coming under the influence of the situation or the people around you, and you start becoming emotional, agitated, uncomfortable, that's the time when you need to create space. Because when we are emotional, all our senses become severely impaired. We can't think straight, and therefore we can't make right choices. If we open our mouth to speak at that time, words will tumble out against our control. We only see at that moment what we want to see. We see through our irritation or anger. We don't see clearly. We hear only what we want to hear. So when we stand back, we will begin to have a bigger view of that situation. Why? Standing back create space during which I try to regain control over my emotion. So it's like somebody standing very close in front of you. Your view of that person is very limited. The angle is very small. And every step you take to go back, and you go back, you're going to have a bigger view of that person. And what if you take a helicopter view? What if you stand from up above as a detached observer and observe a 360 dimension of that person or situation? Meaning, understand what may have triggered a situation, understand what can happen if the situation gets out of control. So looking at the three aspects of time. So the first S, stand back. The O represents observe. And the other S represent having observed. Then you decided what thoughts you think you should create, not the thoughts you're creating under the influence of your emotion. So SOS is another form of stepping away briefly, sufficient time to take back control of your own self, your thoughts, feelings, and emotion. So when we practice introspection, we are also able to discern clearly, because introspection means to step away from external influence. And when I release myself from all the unnecessary thoughts, feelings, and I become quiet, it's like diving into the ocean, and at the top of the ocean, there are so many waves, and the water appears to be murky. But as you dive and dive and dive deeper, you'll be amazed to see your own reflection so clearly by the stillness and the clarity that is visible deep inside. So, how important it is to step back, turn inside, listen, rather, step back, turn inside, and silencing, first of all, the inner chatter so that you can find a solution. And when we come to that point, removing the layers of the roles of my physical identity, of my status, my possession, my position, when we peel off all of that layer and we come to the point of the being, when we come to that soul conscious state, it is like a magnet. soul consciousness, like a magnet, gets drawn to another powerful magnet. Soul consciousness automatically connects you with God consciousness. And God consciousness, this reservoir of unconditional power, can recharge us so quickly, refresh us, re-energize us, and our strength and self-confidence become renewed. So practicing regularly for a few seconds every hour helps us to come back to our essence. I don't know if I have overstepped my time. What do I do? Shall I continue?
No, you're doing fine on time. We have time. I just want to ask people if they have any comments or any questions. We will have chance to ask them to Sister. But no, Sister, you're doing just fine on time. We have at least another 10, 15 minutes before we can break for commentary and questions. So if you have more to say,
Okay.
please do. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. So the power of introspection is an art of strengthening our inner personal life. So I have to decide to use this method of going inside periodically. In this organization, we practice something called traffic control, giving ourselves time out for 1, 2, 3 minutes every hour. And this is such a useful tool because we cannot afford to forget who we are in all that is going on, as Michelle earlier stated, the bombardment of information, the dramatic and constantly changing scenes that is happening no more locally, but always, it seems, the change is happening globally. So there's no escape. You can't say, I will leave this part of the world and go to another part. We seem to fall prey to the news, the media. We become so dependent on the web, the internet, our cell phone, and then how to switch off. So every few minutes, if I practice, I will never be able to lose complete control. I will never get too overwhelmed at work. So this is why, to stay on top of everything. In St. Martin, we are used to having hurricane threats and sometimes hurricane. But if you're aware that that hurricane, that storm, do have an eye of calmness. There's an eye of the storm. The center of the storm is always very, very calm. So if there's a hurricane, just make sure the calm part, eye of the storm, is over you. And that same storm will protect you rather than harm you. So there will be storms. There are always storms. There will continue to be storms. There's no question about that. Because storms are in fact gifts. They are gifts disguised as storms only to provide that opportunity to bring out the best yet that is within us. There is such potential, and it is only moments, storm-like moments, that you use courage, determination. Today our faith and our trust is being put to a test. And today, our conscience is being put to a test. And so, every storm wrapped, presented as a gift, because it takes you to another level. It does not intend, just like when you write any exams, it is never intended to make you fail. The reason why you choose to write the exam, the reason why the exam is presented to you, so that you can pass to another level. So exams, adversities, challenges, storms, they are gifts. Appearing to be adversity, but in that there is so much learning, so much growth, so much maturity. It pushes you out of your comfort zone and gets you closer to your finish line. We sometimes get stuck on the way by sightseeing. So an attitude we all have to develop is that whatever is coming to me is not coming to me as a storm. Whatever is happening is not happening to me. It is happening for me. And when it does get overwhelmed, use the method of introspection. Use the method of reflection. Time out. Space. Today, people believe that introversion means to be cold, withdrawn, detached, selfish, no feeling. No, this is so necessary. It is, in fact, chance to regenerate my own energy, to rejuvenate my own spirit. So every one of us has been practicing introspection. When we go close to a fire, right away, we know danger, step back. So all our lives, we have been practicing stepping back. But in spirituality, we don't just step back, we step inside. And we use those hidden qualities, the freedom of the spirit, the silence, which is the language of the soul, the true power of the soul, which is peace, the power of purity, which is the essence of the soul. We use those innate qualities when we take time out. And so one who is introverted, introspective, radiates, smiles. It's refreshing to be in their company. They don't carry bags and baggages, and they have learned the art of letting go and let it be. This is another aspect of introspection. Letting go, stepping away from the unnecessary, and come back to your essence. So I want to share with you some things that we have to reflect on when we talk about introspection. We have to be able to develop silence, knowing that silence is greater than sound. And silence is effective. When I came to the Brahma Kumaris, I was so emotional. I couldn't see any form of injustice. And it doesn't have to be anything to do with me or a relative of me, but I couldn't stand. I was obviously fluctuating if I'm very emotional. And sometimes I want to explain myself, I want to elaborate on this and that and explain my emotion. None of them work. I try to write long letters explaining. I tried that. I tried getting mood off. I tried distancing myself. None of those work. But silence work. Because when you are silent, you give the other person, the other party, that space to reflect also what he or she said or did or didn't do. And when both parties are given chance to reflect, they can find what's going wrong or what needs to be done to make it right. So silence is so, so important. And so we all have the power of silence in the soul world. As a soul, we are in a state of silence, peace, liberated, free. We are in a state of purity. We are in a state of stillness. There is no movement, there's stillness, silence. That's where we came from, and that's who we are. And that's why when there's too much movement, too much noise, too much sound, it overwhelms us. So we need to practice introversion ever so often to bring us back to the state of where we were and where we have to be before we return back to our final destination. Om Shanti.
Wow, I have a lot to unpack on that one. I have a lot of questions, and I'll try and get to my question, but I think I first want to defer to our audience because they have some interesting comments. One of them just wanted to thank you, loved the idea of the SOS, which was stand back, observe, and steer. I love that idea. He used to, I believe that person used it, but did not know the name. And I always wish that I could remember to use it at times. So it's true to step back, to lean back and answer. I thank you for your comment. One thing that this society, and I would say often in America, we're told to lean in, lean in. If you've got a problem, lean into it. But really, it's not always the best thing. Sometimes you have to know when to lean back, as you say, and assess the situation. Oftentimes on the ground, you don't see everything. And I love that term. I've heard it here as a Brahma Kumar, is the helicopter view. That if you're quiet and you lean back, you can maybe see it from other people's perspectives too, and take in the whole view rather than just what you're seeing. And I know on a personal level, well, we can talk about that maybe if we have some time, because on a personal level, I've had that happen where immediately I think, oh, well, that person's doing that because of this. And then if I don't react and I watch, well, that wasn't it at all. That person was going through her own drama, if you will. And I was able to see that. I went, oh, it was nothing to do with me. It was what she was going through herself. But only by being quiet and not reacting and able to go into so-called my helicopter and detach, was I able to get more of a view of really what was going on. And I was able to show compassion. It wasn't directed at me. It was something else going on. And I was able to quietly and observe this and able to aid her. Instead of responding immediately, I was able to assess the situation. And this was at a work situation. And I was able to respond. And actually, because of that, I think I was able to at least help mitigate some of the issue. So that's a great conversation that you had given us about SOS. I'm going to also remember that SOS, because maybe now it's a tool that I can think about objectively. So we talked about tools. You gave us a good tool. Thank you so much, Sister Devka. But there's a question here that's very, very important. And I can attest to this as well. It's a very, I'm going to just read it. Apparently the person who's writing this disconnected when they were 14 years old because they lost their mother. And she writes, I would beat myself up because I disconnected and went inside my head. It helped, but then it took on a life of its own, and it thought it lasted too long, and the circumstances in the house was not well. So the question is, when does a healthy disconnect become unhealthy? Like oftentimes we can disconnect. I think what I'm reading, and I hate to paraphrase, but we disconnect. But how do you healthily disconnect? When can it become unhealthy? A lot of times we disconnect, but we get our own inner dialogue that's not healthy, that goes over and over and in our mind. And I think if you could speak to that when does a healthy disconnect, how do we prevent it from being unhealthy in terms of going inside of our head? Is there a way to do it in a healthy, positive way?
First of all, we have to recognize what really is introversion. Introversion is meeting with the self. And we need again and again, like when we finish a meeting, we have periods in which we review, and then we go into risk going into another meeting. Otherwise, what's going to happen? So introversion is temporarily separating yourself, because many times, whilst playing our role, we start off playing our role, but then when our role gets threatened, because we start to identify with that role. And when we identify with the role, we always feel insecure. And when that happens, stepping back and coming back to who I am, knowing the difference between me, I, the soul, and the role, and the body. There are three aspects of the self: soul, body, and roles, like a driver, a car, and destination. A destination will never become a car, and a car will never become driver. But we often do that. We forget that I, the soul, am using this body only to play a role. So when we get role conscious or body conscious, isn't it necessary to go back inside? So we are talking about taking a break, stepping back only to return with having re-established the right perspective. Who am I? And what's the difference between me and my role? So, not stepping back on a permanent base or for a long period of time. Every time you're noticing you're reacting, you're losing your cool, you're getting emotional, step back. That's all. So you're not doing it on a permanent, a long time term basis so that you become too much of an islander. No, stepping back, but to come back and re come back, refresh, recharge, and continue.
Thank you for clarifying. You had one term that I really liked. You had a number of terms I really liked, but you said step away from the unnecessary. So much of what we think about is really unnecessary. We worry about things that won't even happen, or what people think. And there's a statistic, I think 70% of what we worry about will never even happen. So imagine how much more time we would have, how much more clarity we would have if we didn't think about that other 70%. So I think your point is very well valid, to try and triage, if you will, like a doctor would in an accident scene. What's really necessary here that I have to focus on? Just pull back, and only in silence and in quiet can you assess that. What's happening right now? How am I right now? As opposed to what happened in the past and what happened in the forward. Does that make sense too, in terms of what's really happening?
That's why I use the example of traffic lights. Before you even approach the traffic lights, you have to get into the right lane. Right lane. You have to stop. You have to decide, where do you go? Turn right, turn left, or go ahead. So what's the purpose of traffic light? So what if we practice this traffic control ever so often? Imagine going on a journey, and there are some very incredibly pleasant sightseeing. And you pause to wonder, who planted? Who did the landscaping here? Wow. And then you drive a little few minutes more and you see a very unpleasant scene. And you stop yet again and ask, how could they do this to the environment? Would you ever get to your destination on time? So introversion is like emptying out that which is unnecessary, come back to the essence, and then step back out, fresh, renewed.
That's great. So actually, we're getting very nice comments that this is coming at the right time in one of our attendees' life. Actually, I have to say, and I concur, it's always the right time to hear this, because there's so much outside influence and stimuli, especially now. I think this subject matter and your explanation, Sister Devki, is always important. It's always going to happen. Even when we think, I find, oh, I meditate now, I'm in a good place, there's always something, I'm not there yet, that jars me and brings me back, and I need that quiet. I need that traffic control. So it's always the right time for this type of introspection, no matter what, because the world is always going to spin. So it's only through the quiet time that we can really observe ourselves and the situations around us.
So some healthy insight that I did mention, that life is not happening to me, but it's happening for me. All terms are wrapped in a gift paper, branded term, but inside there's learn and growth. There is a gift for my progress. So when you are bitter, you are having a perspective of always seeing the glass half empty. Every situation that comes before your eyes, that's the lens you will use.
Right.
That's the perspective you carry. And that's what is going to determine the outcome.
Beautiful.
When you
Beautiful.
have the perspective of life that the glass is half full, wow, you're wearing the right lens. You'll be able to peel off the layers. You'll be able to know that this term, wrapped in the form of a term, is my gift. And so I will embrace it. I will not avoid it, run away, deny it, reject it. I will face it, knowing that term has come for me to grow. The perspective.
I think also on a personal level, I know many feel this way too, that God is good. And everything that comes to me is for a reason to make me a better person. Every knock is a boost. I only grow when I feel something that jars me. So I look at things different now. When someone gives me what I consider to be at one time an issue, a problem, that person is in my path to make me a better person. And it's never fails now. Whenever I look at it that way, even sadness, things that used to make me sad, I can now look at it's enhancing my ultimate goal, which is to be a good soul. And I take that on now and I work at it, I notice that I make different choices now. I can't even remember the old me who looked at things, sometimes with a negative glance. I try very hard to make that positive, and that choice has really changed the way I view life. It really is it's a wonderful gift that I've gotten in the study with all of you. So I urge everyone, we have classes as well. In addition to our Thursday evening conversations, you can call up one of the centers, Harmony House, and learn more about it's a knowledge. It's not just introspection. You need the knowledge to back it up. And you can see how knowledgeable Sister Devki is. She's been with us 35 years. This is years of study and knowledge, and it shows. And that's the soul that you see before you. It takes effort, but it should be easy effort. It looks like it's easy effort for Sister Devki. For me, not so easy yet. I'm still a baby, but it gets easier, like a person learning to walk. You don't give up. You keep going, and eventually you're able to run. Sister Devki runs now through life. I'm still high guard walking.
I have to do a lot of exercise in order to run the way you're describing, but I am trying and I'm getting there.
You are getting there. You are getting there. Well, sister, it's been a wonderful night. Everyone, I see the chat. There's a lot of buzz out there. Everyone enjoyed it so much. I know I did. I want to thank, you're not gone yet because we have to do our meditation, but I wanted to thank Brother Eric, and I want to thank Sister Inez and my partner Louise, and all of you wonderful people who have joined us and given such good insight and questions. Thank you so much, and we hope we'll see you next week. Please stay tuned because we're now going to do our meditation with Sister Devki will do us, and we're going to work on what the beautiful jewels that she gave us tonight. So I turn it back to you, sister. Thank you.
Let's step back. Step back from the room we are residing and step back from the senses, what we see, what we are hearing, the sound around us. Go a little deeper. Step back inside our head and switch off all the senses that reside in our head. The sense of smell, sight, sound, from thinking, from my subconsciousness, all that which I have stored, step back and come to that innate self. A beautiful, star-like point of divinity. That authentic self, child of God. That self that is free and pure. That self that is full, whole, complete. That original and eternal soul belongs to the one who is the ocean of all powers, ocean of all virtues. That child who belonged to a world of souls, brothers, divine beings. In that awareness of the self, the soul, I own nothing. I want nothing. Because the soul, the point, is whole and complete. Stay there in that stillness, knowing I am powerful. I am complete. I am free.
Thank you.
Sure.
Om Shanti. Thank you so much, Sister Devki. What a wonderful, delightful evening. Thank you for the gift. You wondered, what kind of tools, practical tools. We have many. You gave us a gift that we have to be reminded we have that gift that we can always go inside at any time, anything in front of us, we can stop, even if it's for a moment, and go back to ourself. That is a true gift that you remind us of. And also you gave us so many things, but SOS and one thing after another. So thank you so much for bringing such benefit to all of us. And thank you all for joining us tonight. And next week, we will be back with our theme of spiritual power to flourish in life. And next week, our topic is increasing our ability to respond positively to life's events. Sometimes we've got to, things are great. And how do we enhance that and keep that greatness going? And that's also with us. So let's think positively, have a very positive, wonderful week, but take time out, lean back a little bit so we can really enjoy the beauty of our lives. So with that, I turn it back to Brother Eric. Thank you so much again, and we will see you next week.
Very good. Thank you, Sister Yoki. Always glad to have you here. Hope the hurricane season doesn't start too soon. And Michelle, thank you very much for everything that you do to bring this for everybody. And those who have joined, thank you for coming. We'll see you next week. Enjoy, have a great week, and SOS to all.
So nice to hear your voice, Brother Eric.
Yeah. Om Shanti,
Om
everyone.
Shanti.